So now we're going to be solving percent problems. And when you're doing word problems and you're trying to translate from words into an equation, we need to know some of the keywords. If you ever see the word of, that's going to mean multiply. If you ever see the word is in your word problem, that's going to mean equals. And if you ever see the word what, that's going to mean x. Okay? What is like what you don't know, and that's going to be your variable, and we're going to use that x. Now, when you are writing percent equations, you need to change all of your percentages to either fractions or decimals. We'll probably use decimals since that's what we've been doing in this lesson. So our first problem says 5 is what percent of 20? So translating this 5 is going to be a 5. Then you see the word is. Is going to be equals. What percent? So we are looking for a percent. So my percent is x of, we said of means multiply, and 20. Okay, so 5 equals what percent x of multiply 20. Now we have an equation. So we have 5 equals x times 20. To get the x all by itself, I need to do the opposite of multiply by 20, which in this case is divide by 20. When you get your calculator out and you take 5 divided by 20, you get 0.25. Now remember, we're looking for a percent. So we're going to change this a decimal into a percent. So my answer is 25%. So 5 is 25% of 20. Let's try another problem. 12 is 30% of what number? 12, so we start with 12, is, that means equals, 30%. Now we said all percents need to be changed to a decimal, so we're going to change that into 0.30 because I'm going to move the decimal over 2 places, so it's 0.30. Of means multiply. What number? Well, I don't know, so that's going to be your x. So I want to get x all by itself. We have this equation here, and 0.30 is being multiplied by x, so you're going to do the opposite, which is divide. Get your calculator out, and 12 divided by 0.3 is going to be 40. So 12 is 30% of 40. So 40 is your number. Their next problem, what number is 25% of 0.008? What number? We don't know, so that's going to be x. Is equals 25%. 25% when I move the decimal over 2 places turns out to be 0.25. Of means multiply, 0.008. So in this case, the x is already solved. All you need to do is take your calculator out and multiply 0.25 times 0.008, and your answer turns out to be 0.002. You should be trying these along in your calculator to make sure that you're typing it in your calculator correctly. Next problem, 38%. Okay, we change all percents into decimals, so that's 0.38. Of means multiply. Of 200 is means equals what number? Well, I don't know, so that's going to be x. Again, this is already solved for x, so all I need to do is take my calculator and multiply 0.38 times 200, and that gets me 76. So 38% of 200 is 76. So now we're going to be doing some more word problems. These deal with parts and wholes. So we'll go ahead and read it, and as you're reading it, I want you to think about what the numbers are. Are they a percent? Is it part of the whole, or is it the whole? And we know that this equation, we have percent of the whole equals the part. So written out, percent of the whole equals the part over here in words. So Julia notes that 20% of her class is absent. If the class has 45 students, how many students are absent? So the 20% is definitely a percent. I'm going to change that into 0.20 by moving the decimal over 2 places, because that's how we deal with our percentages, to turn them into decimals. If the class has 45 students, how many students are absent? Okay, so 20% are absent, so that's the part. 45 students are the total number of students. So is that the whole or is that the part? Well, 45 is going to be the whole. What is the part? The part is the number of students that are absent, which we don't know. So that's going to be X. So I have 0.20 for the percent. The whole class is 45. The number that are absent is we don't know. We're trying to find it out. Now we have this percent times whole equals part equation. So the percent is 0.20 times the whole number, which is 45, equals the part, which in this case is X. This is actually already solved, so all you have to do is take your calculator out, multiply it, and that gets you X equals 9. So we have 9 students are absent. So if you have a class of 45, 9 are absent, that's 20% of the class that is absent. Next one, Pablo answered 90% of the questions on his math exam correctly. If he had 27 correct answers, how many questions were on the exam? So 90% is the number and 27. We got to correctly place it in the right spot. 90%, that's a percent, and if I move the decimal over 2 places, I get 0.90. If you had 27 correct answers, how many total questions were on the exam? So 27 is the number of correct answers. Is that the part or is that the whole? Well, that's going to be the part. The whole is, I don't know. I don't know how many total questions are on the exam. So now I'm going to use this equation. Percent times the whole equals the part. The percent is 0.90 times the whole, which is X, equals the part, which is 27. To solve this equation, I need to get X by itself. The opposite of multiply would be divide, so I'm going to divide by the number in front of X, which is 0.90. So that goes away, and I'm left with X equals. Take out my calculator and type in 27 divided by 0.9, and that gets me 30. This tells me that there were 30 questions on the test, which makes sense. If you got 27 correct, that's about a 90. Okay, so you can do a little bit of deducing in your head. 35 milliliters of a 60 milliliter solution is hydrochloric acid. What percent of the solution is hydrochloric acid? So 30 milliliters of a 60 milliliter solution. That 35 milliliters is the part. 60 milliliters is the whole. And the question said what percent? Well, what is, I don't know. So we're going to label that X. We know the percent times the whole, and the whole is 60, equals the part. So using that equation, I can solve for X by dividing by the number that is next to the X. And that gets me X is equal to 35 divided by 60. Pull out your calculator, and that gets you 0.583 repeating. And this is a percent, so I'm going to move the decimal over twice, and that's 85.3 repeating percent. And this is acid that we're talking about. So of the solution, 58.3% of the solution is acid. And that concludes our lesson on ratios, rates, proportions, and percents.